London Reels, way better idea, sponsored by Xbrain. Every day I come into the studio, there's literally a million things to do. Whether it's booking a guest, taping a show, editing an episode, or trying to pitch that future sponsor. It's hard to know where to begin. So I took a tip from Martin Bjerregaard, our former guest, and I create a today list. It's not a to-do list, but it's those 3 things that you want to get done today. The ones you've been putting off, the phone calls you know you have to make. I focus on those, and I usually find I have a productive one. I hope that works for you. Today's Way Better Idea is brought to you by the guys at Xbrain. If you want to check out their grass-fed, free-range protein powder, you can go to xbrain.co.uk or click on the link below and get 15% off. Use the code LondonReal. Peace.
And it was an interesting moment. It was a sit down I had where I went out one night in Kelowna, where I'm from, and my dad, like I said, used to own a strip club called Cheetahs. And all the local MC used to hang out there. When I say MC, it's Motorcycle Club, for those that don't watch Sons of Anarchy. They used to hang out there, were friends with my dad, and I grew up around a lot of them. They were friends of my dad's, friends of mine. I saw some of them that went from one of them being a manager to us, that then became a full patch member, and still friends with some of them. And we went out to another bar, and my buddy was hitting on a girl, and some of the members, they weren't full members, they were prospects and hang-arounds, right? I can identify them right away, but the average person doesn't know what the colors and stuff they're wearing. I did. But my buddy doesn't see, they come up and they say, hey, quit talking to this chick or whatever, and he was with me, and like I said, I used to fight a lot. I was Western Canadian boxing champ when I was younger, so he got a little lippy too. He was like, what's that? You guys want to suck my dick? Right? And they were so dumbfounded that this little scrawny kid, they were like, what? So they come after, and I saw it happening, and I went, because I knew he didn't identify what they were wearing. So I went over to try to stop, and I put my hand on a wall in front of the one guy that was charging after my buddy, and he smacked out of the way, and then I put it again, then he just smacked me with the bottle, and I still have the scar on my forehead there. I got 22 stitches. And I think he thought I was just going to drop after that, but I'd been in 1 or 2 bare knuckle matches, so I came right on, I knocked him out cold, right? But then a big brawl started, and luckily I was with some of my other buddies that were some pretty tough killers too, they were some of the first guys training some MMA. David Lee, who trains Rory McDonald and Michael Hill, and he's from my hometown, so some of these guys were training with him. And I mean, we did all right, and we walked out, and we didn't realize how hazy it got, because they started fighting the bouncers after, because they were embarrassed that we knocked 2 of them out, and then I used to do fitness modeling back in the day. I know I can't tell now. I'm a skinny fat dad now.
Great line, though.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds essentially, but it just, and the context I'm saying,
modeling.
the context I'm saying is that when I went back and I had this big gouge on my head and blood all over my face, and my dad flipped out. He's like, this fucking ruined your career. And my dad's like, because who my dad was friends with, he was starting to make calls. Who the fuck hit my son? I'm a fucking and then sure enough, within 10 minutes, the guy that I knocked out was a Hell's Angel's son. So then they both connected because they knew each other. Were like, yeah. And then my dad's like, worst news. He's like, you knocked out a full patch member's son. He's like, we have to have a sit down tomorrow. I'm like, oh, excellent. That's awesome. Right. So going to get stitches that night, and then we go and we're at the Pier Marina pub, which isn't there anymore, but we're sitting down, and it's such a bizarre scenario. So, and this is what the 10 pages is written about. Of course, all fictional characters and everything now, and I wouldn't play myself. I'd get a really good actor because it's a younger thing. Yeah, I do docs. I can't.
Thor, the Thor guy. There you go.
He needs to be a bit younger, but he'd be great. I actually like Taylor Kitsch because he's from Kelowna. Right?
Yeah,
a Kelowna boy.
Yeah.
That's who I'd ideally like to. If he's too old for the character, I'd love him to play one of the bikers. But so we go to this thing, and my dad was friends with another guy that was going to be a prospect, and he knew the president of the Hells Angels at the time in town, and he owned the pub, and he was going to make a decision on what happened. So 10 feet away or 12 feet away are the guys I got into a fight with, and they got all their bruises and black, and I've got all the cuts and bottles all over this, and the mediator's going back and forth. So he sits down and says, what's your story? So I was like,
So it's like a tribunal?
Yeah, they have a sit down, because the way that world works is they tax you, right? Unofficial tax. They lay a levy. If I was in trouble, my dad was going to get taxed. If I was in the wrong,
Interesting.
we were going to get taxed.
So it's organized. Very organized.
Yeah, very, very. The sit downs are very. But it also happened because my dad had a relationship, right? If we were just outsiders, they found it probably wouldn't be so smooth, right? But because we had friends and everybody, they're like, nah, let's see. And they knew I didn't drink and I didn't do stuff like that, so they knew if Adam was involved, and I wasn't involved in any smuggling or dealing, so there would be no business elements involved. It would just be strictly a sit-down chat. So we went, and then they're like, Adam, what's your side? And I was like, well, my buddy was hitting on a girl. They didn't like it. They went in there. I tried to go tell them who my dad was, because my dad was sitting at a table with all the guys who like he got introduced to them. He didn't know them really well, but he knew the dad, and he got introduced. And so we go, so he's going, and then he leaves us, and he goes back there, and he's like, and then he comes back, he's like, they're saying a different story. They're saying you didn't respect the patch, and that you, sucker punched them and everything else, and that they didn't hit you with a bottle. And I was like, saw the scratches down my face, and I said to him, like, you've been in some street fight before. I was like, either these guys have really long nails, or this is glass smashed on my face. Because that's not a fist. Fist breaks bones, makes black eyes, doesn't put scratches along your face and stitches like this. He's like, true, that looks like a glass. And I was like, they came after my buddy for a girl. I tried to talk it out before anything happened. It happened so fast, boozers and all. I got hit with a bottle, and then it was just survival mode, right? And they're like, well, if that's the truth, then, there's nothing wrong with you defending yourself. And your friends jumped. They're like, which one of your friends jumped in? I'm like, I'm not a rat. I'm not saying who jumped in to help me. They saw me get hit with a bottle. They saw 2 or 3 guys come in after I knocked the one guy out. They jumped in. We reacted to what happened. And I mean, like you've seen something, I mean, the town kind of supports them because they don't want other gangs coming in, right? They prefer the MC. And
sounds a lot like the Gambino
it's so
family.
it's so much like Sons of Anarchy. If you watch, like when Sons of Anarchy came out, my friends were like, "Dude, that's your life." It's so much similar.
Is it very accurate?
Very accurate. Well, Sonny Barger, who started the Hells Angels, makes cameos in that show all the time.
Okay.
He's the guy that talks with the voice box and the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's not accurate in Sons of
Oh,
Anarchy?
of course. There's stuff they have to make for movies. Like, I mean, no one's having shootouts on their bike like this. Like, because if you just tilt it a little bit too much of this, you're eating, like. But of course, they have to make that stuff like, like you're back, and then the guy's shooting from the car. Like, you'd be able to hit a guy on a bike pretty easy or knock him off that. Yeah. Like, I mean, just drive up, duck, and run him off the road, right? Yeah. But
will they intimidate police? Will they do that? Local police?
There's so much business stuff behind, but I mean, even they say the number one gang in the world is the police, because you can call in SWAT, and you can call and it doesn't, tough to fight that argument, in court, being like, well, the full patch member got shot, he was self-defending against the cops. Like, really? Don't think so, right? Like, the cops are going to win. Right. So they're the number, but I mean, I'm still friends with a lot of them. It's not, I wouldn't want to be a patch member, but I can see I mean, there is something cool to put on that vest. Like, they've given me a blank vest that had the patches ripped off, like, because we're going to use it as a prop and stuff. Like, because some of them are going to be consultants on it, because I want it to be really, coming from the doc world, I want dramatic and fake names and fake scenarios, other than some real moments that happen with me, like the sit down, because it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Because, like, even finished the sit down story.
What happened?
When it was done, they kept going back and forth, and couldn't get the story straight, right? And then finally the mediator comes back and he goes, I know what I'm going to do. I know the owner of the nightclub really well. I'm just going to ask him for the videotape. I was like, perfect. And then I remember these words, and it's like, even though you know your story, you start being like, and I'm sure you guys do, like, you'll tell a story for years, and then you'll have even a friend tell a story when you're there, and you're like, fuck, he remembers it differently than I do, right? Like, you're like, I better think back. Like, so he goes, Adam, he's like, if you're lying, and I know you're leaving for New York tomorrow, you and your dad are going to get taxed. And
how much would the tax be?
I don't know. They'd probably issue something, and then we'd have to come up, and you could possibly negotiate.
It's like a one-off payment or a regular payment?
It'd be probably pretty good.
Okay.
I'm guessing nowhere less than 10 grand, but probably could have been more.
That's wild. I have no idea.
So they literally, then he said, if you do, then you can go to the 3rd Street chapter, and you could deal punishment there, because then I was going to get a whooping too. Right?
Really? In addition or separately?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Taxing and a whooping, because I'm lying, right? If you're lying, it's not good.
How bad of a whooping? I mean, like...
Not, maybe a broken nose and some...
Okay. A few guys punching you for a minute.
For a little bit. And I definitely didn't want... He's like, or you can fly home and deal with punishment, which I would have done.
Right.
Because I don't want to go to... Well, because the 3rd Street chapter is in New York, right? I don't know anybody there. Oh, Jesus. So I'd rather take a beating from guys I know than...
Right.
Okay.
So I was like, I'll take the beating in Kelowna. But then, like, when he asked, I knew my story was straight because I didn't drink that night. But I started to think, I'm like, fuck, did I remember everything right? Is there anything I fabricated? Then they checked the tape, came back, I was all good.
Did the other guys get in trouble?
They got in trouble. I don't know to what extent. I heard they were supposed to get some beatings too, but I mean, with the one guy's dad being a full patch member, I doubt it.
Did you ever see him again or any
Yeah,
other?
I've seen them again. I don't know if they remember me though.
This week on London Real, Bruce Perry of the BBC series Tribe.
I don't fancy my odds, really. I'm just going to visit these extraordinary people who really see the world in a different way and really trying to engage with them in a way that I've never done before. We see everything as disconnected, whereas a lot of the rest of the world sees us all as intrinsically connected, not only physically but also through our mental states. You know, I'm riddled with my own problems, my own insecurities, my own traumas, my own ego.